Hello everyone, welcome to episode 22, I believe, of the Lewis Cooper Experience podcast. I'm experimenting with some lights and stuff today just to make it look different, I guess. It's probably just makes my face look bluer on one side, but early days, so I'll figure that out as we go. Hope everyone is well. I want to talk about two things today, just the two. There's a reason for that. I want to talk about The Bad Batch, the new Star Wars animated show on Disney Plus, which has been 2 episodes already, and I want to talk about a film called The Exorcist 3, or Legion, as it's sometimes known, and we will get into that shortly. I started a new job this week, and I've not had as much time to watch things, so I've not got that much stuff to talk about. But The Bad Batch is a spin-off of the Clone Wars, the Disney animated show for Star Wars, and it's really good. I really like it. Star Wars Rebels, which was the kind of sequel series to the Clone Wars, is probably my favourite Star Wars thing of recent years, and probably in general now, really. And Clone Wars not so much, but Rebels I really love, and this show kind of stands on its own, but also is in the same kind of vein as those, 'cause it's a Dave Filoni show. And I really like The Mandalorian. I like it a lot, but these animated shows really capture it for me. They really capture what I like about Star Wars, and this show started off really well. They debuted the first episode on May the 4th appropriately. It was an hour and 14 minutes, which I was really surprised at. I thought, they were like 20-minute episodes, but I suppose with Disney Plus, as it's straight to streaming on their own service, they don't have to worry about like limits of time lengths of episode anymore, because it's not on a TV channel. So if before it was 20 minutes, that was their slot. Now they can do whatever. So but yeah, I won't go into too many specifics, so no big spoilers. But if you are thinking about watching it, if say like you like The Mandalorian and stuff, but you don't know if the animated stuff is for you, then I'll talk about it a little bit, and you can make your mind up there. But yeah, it's set during a really interesting time in the Star Wars universe, which we haven't really seen in anything as far as I remember, maybe in some of the more expanded stuff like books or what have you, but it is literally set at more or less the end of episode 3, so it kind of shows the transition from the Galactic Republic to the Galactic Empire, which is really interesting because we don't normally see that. And it's about Clone Force 99, the Bad Batch, who are a group of not quite, I can't remember what the word they use for them is, but they're like, trying to think, they're not quite right sort of clones. They're like, what is the word? I can't think of it now. Like just kind of faulty clones, like something that's gone wrong with them in the cloning process and what have you, and they use them for like the dangerous missions and stuff. But as we see, and again, slight spoilers to the first episode, you see Order 66, which you saw at the end of the Clone Wars, and obviously you see during episode 3. And because they're, I can't think what the word is, because they're just kind of faulty clones, basically. The inhibitor chips that control the behaviour don't work on them, so they're kind of, and there is a really, really neat tie into Rebels in this as well. So as a Rebels fan, this was really cool to see. Because we're talking, say, episode 3, so a good 20 years or so before A New Hope, and probably about 15 years before Rebels. But yeah, so they're the only clones that aren't attacking the Jedi and are kind of doing their own thing, which is really cool. It's a really good idea. And like I say, in this second episode that was on Friday, which was a 30-minute episode again, which is longer than I thought it would be, which is cool. They're kind of coming to terms with their place in the universe now, because they're no longer part of the army, and they don't really have anywhere. So they're now deserters in a way. But then they kind of show the changing of the Republic into the Empire, like I say, and like the remaining clone troopers are kind of early stormtroopers. And there's a really cool little bit in the first episode where they go to Kamino, the cloning planet, and Tarkin says about how a conscription force of soldiers would be much cheaper than continuing the cloning process. And then the Kaminoan person says, yeah, but they wouldn't be as good as our clones. And he's like, yeah, well, who cares? They're expendable anyway, because he's Tarkin. Which is kind of cool, because that kind of explains like why they went from a clone army to a general populous army kind of thing. For the stormtroopers, and why stormtroopers aren't generally that effective. They're more just in numbers, whereas clone troopers were quite sort of specific and quite good soldiers, because they're all clones of the same soldier. And that's the other cool thing about it, is every member of the Bad Batch is voiced by D. Bradley Baker, who was the voice of Rex and all the other clones in the animated stuff, and he sounds a bit like Tim Morrison, who played Jango Fett, and the clone bassist and that. But each of the Bad Batch has a slightly different voice as well, so he kind of does them all sort of differently, which is really good. And that's really cool. There is a newer clone called Omega, who's a young girl who's joined the team, and I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. In some ways it feels like that way of kind of getting a kid in there for kids to relate to, but also there's a bit more to it than that. It does have kind of a Mandalorian vibe with her and Hunter, and kind of the the adoptive father and the daughter kind of thing, which I say Mandalorian vibe, that's the closest reference point. It's obviously that's not a new thing, but yeah, I think if you like the Filoni animation and the Clone Wars and Rebels and stuff, then this is just more of that, but with better animation because it's newer and just kind of a slightly different take on what we've seen before. And I think if you watch, say, The Mandalorian, for example, and you want more Star Wars stuff, this is perfectly good. Like, don't let it being animated put you off. I've never known why people think animation is somehow means something's inferior. Like, it's just another form of storytelling, and a lot of really good stuff comes from animation, and I don't think that makes any difference, the style of the visual nature of it kind of thing. I think you don't really have to have seen the Clone Wars or anything. You can pretty much just jump straight in. It's like The Mandalorian. Like, if you know the characters in that who were in the Clone Wars, it makes it better. But if you don't, they fill you in enough to go along with it. But yeah, I like it. It's off to a really good start. I look forward to it. Yeah. Anyway, that is my review, sort of, episode 1 and 2 of The Bad Batch. And the movie I want to talk about this week is William Peter Blatty's The Exorcist 3, which is a film you don't really hear much about unless you're in certain circles and kind of cult circles. First of all, that's a super cool cover, and on the back you've got all the special features and stuff because it's a 2-disc edition, and this was a little bit on the pricey side and it was hard to find for a while. I think it's on some streaming services, but I got this and I hadn't seen it prior to it. I got this a little while ago and I watched it a while ago, but it's been on my mind this week, and it's an interesting one because obviously The Exorcist is The Exorcist, and it's a renowned classic film that people love. The screenplay, also written by Blatty, but we'll get into that, won the Oscar, which is rare for a horror movie even back then. And The Exorcist 2 is one of those films that no one ever says anything good about. I've never bothered to watch it because it's just so universally panned, and often with films that are are notoriously bad, there is a kind of a subset cult of people will go, oh no, actually it's really good. But The Exorcist 2 doesn't have that. It's just like everyone's like, nah. So I never bothered, and I went straight onto this. And William Peter Blatty wrote the original Exorcist novel and the screenplay of the novel for the film, and he also wrote a book called Legion, which was made into a film, which is how this started out in life. And then through various things, studio stuff, it's quite an interesting story, they decided to make it The Exorcist 3. And they said to him, stick an exorcism in the end there, and we'll call it Exorcist 3 and we'll cash in. And he went, okay then, alright, I suppose. But this edition has a recent version, which is the director's cut, which is the film Legion. And it's very similar in a lot of respects. It's only really the ending that's different. I won't go into too much detail in case people want to watch it for the first time. It came out about 1990, so it's been around for a while. But yeah, originally it was linked to The Exorcist as far as I know, but it wasn't really a sequel as such. It didn't have a big exorcism in the original ending is quite straightforward, and in some ways I like it more. It doesn't go as over the top as this one does, but there's still supernatural elements in it and stuff like that. But other than that, the director's cut is kind of the same, but just a few added bits in, and they didn't have like some of the footage, so it's just from like the VHS dailies, and it's just like it changes like aspect ratio and picture quality, so it's a bit weird at first, but you get used to it. But I really like this film. I watched the theatrical cut probably a few months ago now, and I watched the director's cut this week, and it's the only film I've watched this week, and it's a really, really good film. It's really interesting. I've watched a few videos about it, and I've started watching the documentary about it on here as well. George C. Scott is the main character, and he plays a policeman from the first film, but played by a different actor in the first film, who was only really a minor character, who knew Jason Miller's character, the priest, Father Damien Karras, from the first film, who is also kind of in this as well, sort of. And he's really, really good as like a gruff old detective who's trying to put kind of the past behind him and investigating these horrible murderers from the Gemini killer. For me, one of my favourite things about it is he has a friendship with Father Dyer from the first film, who's played by Ed Flanders in this, not Ned. I think it was also in the first film, but played by a different actor. And their friendship is so real and believable and so funny, and just, you know, you want more of that as the film goes on, kind of thing. And it's really, really cool. But Brad Dourif is in it, and he plays the Gemini killer, or Patient X as he's called. And he's only in a few scenes, and he is in like a straitjacket in a padded cell sort of thing. And it's confusing because in some bits he's played by Jason Miller, Damien Karras, and he's kind of in his body, and it's all really weird. It's the bit of the film I don't really understand, and I'm not sure if it's just me, but the idea of it being Legion is that there's a lot of people in this one body, and he can control people as well, like out of his body. It's all a bit odd, but still really cool. And there's a few bits. Brad Dourif is probably best known for being the voice of Chucky in the Child's Play movies, and I think he was the guy who possesses Chucky's body. I think he played him at the start of the first one. I can't remember that character's name, it's going to bug me. And he was in The Lord of the Rings and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, probably what I always think of when I think of Brad Dourif. But he is superb in this. Like, he does this literally raving lunatic performance, but also have these moments of real quiet to him where he's describing horrible things, and then he goes really over the top, but like he never crosses that line of it being too much. Like, it's a big performance, but not to the point where you're gonna go, it's a bit silly now. It is completely believable. Like, I'm amazed it doesn't get talked about more about how good he is in this film. And there's the other things I like about it is all the performances and stuff, and how it's quite a slow, sort of quiet, kind of almost like a murder mystery film for most of it. And like I say, the theatrical ending does have a big, elaborate kind of exorcism scene, which is pretty cool. Like, I don't know if when Blatty said that he would put that scene in, he went overboard with it intentionally, maybe, but then I also like the original ending as well. It is a lot more simple and to the point. But yeah, it's a very interesting film, and I think it's gone up in popularity in recent years. And whenever I mention it to people, they go, "There's an Exorcist 3," and I'm like, "Yeah, there's like 5." But I've only seen this one and the original one. But this is a really, really interesting film, and I really like it a lot. Yeah, that's that. That's the Exorcist 3. So, also, I've just finished reading this. This isn't the main cover, but I've taken the dust jacket off. This is The Sheriff of Babylon by Tom King and Mitch Gerads. There's the back cover there. The covers are drawn by John Paul Leon, who died this week, which is really sad and quite odd timing as well, that I happened to read this book that he did the covers for. They're clearly a great artist. But yeah, I'm probably going to do a review on this because this is the deluxe hardcover edition, and I did a review of King and Gerads' Mr. Miracle series, which has done a lot of views by my standards, so I'm going to do a video for this because hopefully people will be interested in that as well. So yeah, so keep an eye out for that. Probably put that up this week, maybe. Don't know, got a busy job now, so it's difficult. But yeah, that's that. But yeah, thank you for watching. I do appreciate it. And yeah, leave a like. Let me know any of your thoughts on some of the stuff we've talked about. And yeah, thank you very much. Goodbye.